Somewhere in your brain, there's a switch. You didn't install it. You didn't choose it. And every time you look at something small, furry, and helpless, it flips without asking your permission. Right now, somewhere in your house, there might be a bowl with a name on it, a leash by the door, and a voice you only use for one creature on Earth. Not your partner, not your coworkers, not even most of your friends. Your dog, your cat. And you've probably never once asked yourself where that voice came from. It happens automatically. Your pitch climbs half an octave. Your sentences shrink. Who's a good boy comes out in a rhythm you'd never use on an adult human, and you don't decide to do it. It just happens every single time, like a program running in the background of your own mind. So what is that switch? And why does it exist? Let's start with what the voice actually is, acoustically. In 2002, researchers Denny Burnham, Christine Kitamura, and Ute Volmer-Kana ran one of the first controlled studies comparing the way people speak to infants, adults, and dogs. What they found was strange. Pet-directed speech and infant-directed speech weren't just similar. In several measurable ways, they were nearly the same speech register. Higher pitch, wider pitch range, slower tempo, shorter sentences, heavy repetition. This wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't culture-specific. Since that study, researchers across multiple countries have recorded the same pattern with dogs, cats, and even horses. The pitch shift shows up whether the speaker is male or female, whether they're a parent or not, whether they even like babies. Your voice doesn't ask what species is in front of you. It just detects something, and it responds. So what's the something? This is where it gets interesting, because the trigger isn't the animal's identity. It's the animal's shape. In 1943, an Austrian ethologist named Konrad Lorenz proposed something he called Kindchen schema, the baby schema. He argued that a specific cluster of physical features triggers an automatic caretaking response in humans. A large head relative to the body, big eyes set low on the face, a round skull, chubby cheeks, short limbs. Lorenz believed this wasn't learned. He believed it was wired in, an ancient mechanism that exists for one reason: to make sure adults protect anything that looks helpless enough to need it. And here's the part that should stop you cold. That mechanism doesn't check species. It just checks shape. A puppy has the baby schema. A kitten has it. A human infant has it. And decades of follow-up research have confirmed exactly what Lorenz predicted. In imaging studies, when adults are shown images high in baby schema features, the brain's reward system activates. Not a general, "that's nice" response. The same reward circuitry that lights up for food, for money, for romantic attraction. Your brain doesn't have a separate file for cute animal. It has one file for helpless thing that needs me. And everything with the right proportions gets filed there. Puppies, kittens, human babies. Even researchers have found stuffed animals and cartoon characters designed to mimic the same proportions. This is why a golden retriever puppy and a 2-month-old infant can trigger nearly identical neural and vocal responses in you, despite being different species separated by tens of millions of years of evolution. Your brain was never built to distinguish between them. It was only ever built to detect the shape. But the voice is only half the story. Because something else happens the moment your dog looks at you, and it's stranger than the baby talk. In 2015, a research team led by Miho Nagasawa at Azabu University in Japan published a study in the journal Science that traced something researchers had suspected for years but never proven. They measured oxytocin, the hormone most associated with the bond between a mother and her infant, in both dogs and their owners before and after a period of mutual eye contact. What they found was a loop. When a dog gazed at its owner, the owner's oxytocin rose. When the owner's oxytocin rose, they responded with more affection toward the dog. And that affection caused the dog's oxytocin to rise in turn. Gaze up, oxytocin up, affection up, gaze again. This is the exact same feedback loop that exists between a mother and her infant. It's one of the core mechanisms that builds the bond in the first minutes and days after a child is born. And somehow, over the roughly 15,000 years since dogs began living alongside humans, that same ancient circuitry got hijacked. Not evolved from scratch, hijacked. Dogs, through thousands of generations of living next to us, developed the ability to trigger a bonding system that was built for something else entirely. Wolves, notably, don't do this. Even hand-raised wolves that have known humans since birth rarely hold sustained eye contact the way dogs do. Researchers believe this single behavioral difference, the willingness to look a human directly in the eyes and hold it, may be one of the specific traits that separated the earliest dogs from their wild ancestors. Somewhere in that split, an animal learned to switch on a circuit designed for our own children, and it worked. And the eye contact isn't the only place where the resemblance to a human infant becomes measurable. In 1998, Hungarian researchers led by Joseph Topol adapted a famous psychological test, originally designed to study human infants, and ran it on dogs instead. It's called the strange situation test. A child, or in this case a dog, is placed in an unfamiliar room. The parent or owner is present, then leaves, then a stranger enters, then the owner returns. Psychologists watch exactly how the child responds to each transition, because the pattern reveals whether a secure attachment bond has formed. When Topol's team ran this test on dogs, the dogs responded almost exactly the way human toddlers do. They explored the room more freely when their owner was present. They grew visibly distressed when the owner left, even with the stranger still in the room. And when the owner returned, the dogs sought them out specifically, greeting them differently than they'd greeted the stranger the entire time. Researchers have since confirmed this same pattern using dogs' heart rate and cortisol levels, and the physiology tracks the behavior precisely. Dogs with a secure bond to their owner show a calmer physiological response to stress. Dogs without one show a spike that looks almost identical to what's measured in insecurely attached children. Your dog isn't performing loyalty. Somewhere in its nervous system, it has classified you the same way a 2-year-old classifies a parent. And it doesn't stop there. Because humans didn't just discover this switch by accident. Over thousands of years, without knowing what they were doing, humans bred straight toward it. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitri Belyaev began an experiment that would run for decades. He took wild silver foxes and bred them for exactly one trait: tameness, nothing else. Not appearance, not size, just a calmer response to humans. Within a handful of generations, something happened that nobody had predicted. The tamest foxes didn't just act friendlier, they started looking different. Their ears went floppy, their tails curled, their skulls rounded out, their faces grew shorter and softer, more juvenile, more like a puppy that never fully grows up. Selecting for tameness alone had, as a side effect, selected for baby schema. The friendliest foxes became the cutest foxes, without anyone breeding for cuteness at all. Now think about what humans have done to dogs and cats over thousands of years of selective breeding, mostly without any formal understanding of genetics. Rounder faces, bigger eyes relative to the skull, shorter snouts, floppier ears. We didn't just fall in love with certain animals. Generation after generation, we nudged entire species toward the exact proportions that trigger the switch hardest, chasing a reward circuit we didn't know we had, using breeding decisions instead of words.